Welcome to another episode of Mindshift. I'm Dimitri Wakuf, your host and a leadership coach. As you know, the purpose of Mindshift is to help you create atomic shifts in your mind so that you can live your life with more prosperity, love, and satisfaction. And today we're gonna have someone who is gonna talk about how we can actually read people. And that's a topic which I always am been so interested in. I've just shared with him that I've read the book of Dale Carnegie, like how to win friends and influence people, like more than 10 times. But I can still say that I can learn a lot in this topic because I've been involved in that. But this person has so much experience, so much wisdom in this direction. So I'm really interested to hear more about it. So without talking more about this, welcome, Alan Stevenson. I want to first ask you, actually, who you are. Share your story with us.
Oh, you throw me at the deep end, eh? Where do I start with that? It's a lot of it, a lot of background there. But if I look at who I am today, I'm a grandfather of 6 grandkids, a father of 3 sons. The 3 sons who I raised from the age of 4 and 11 and 12 on my own. Before that, came from born in Sydney in Australia, and lived with my mother and sister. My father died when I was 3 years old, so I didn't have any male role models in my life, which is probably one of the reasons that led me to wanting to understand people and build stronger relationships through my life. But professionally, I'm a profiling and communication specialist. Been working all around the world, and I'm also the host and creator of the Campfire Project and the #WeTogether initiative. So everything I do in life is in relationships. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. There's a lot more of the journey that got me to this point. But yeah, a profiling and communication specialist and host of the Campfire Project.
Lovely, man. So, but I want to hear a little bit more about something. So every person, I think last time we spoke with you, we had this conversation around that every person has these points in life, like moments in life which turn around your life and just point you in different direction. So can you give us a little bit of these moments in your life? Can you record them, like 1, 2, these moments when they turn around everything? So can you share some of them with us?
Yeah, certainly. They're pretty much like the spokes on a push bike wheel. There's plenty of them. As I said, the first one was growing up without a dad. That was an interesting time for me, pretty much a loner in those times. But I applied for what we call the Postmaster General's Department. It was our post office and our telecommunications company that was the one organisation. And I applied for it in, was it 1967 and 1968. I applied to, and I got knocked back both times. The second time I was knocked back, they said that I had failed. And then I thought, I'm at high school doing my year 10. I didn't see myself getting through to year 11 and 12 because I really hated the education system. And I thought I'll become a carpenter because that's what everybody, all the vocational guidance trainers and teachers I had were telling me. They said, Alan, you haven't got the brains to get into higher level jobs, become a carpenter. And so I did that, ended up being a factory job and didn't enjoy it. So I left there and moved on to, I think I'll go back to school. Then I got a letter from the Postmaster General's Department saying that had that many dropouts, they'd not accept me. And so I then joined them and did my 5 years as a technician in training. But as I was doing that, there was a process. So you'd finish that, you'd sit for an entrance exam and do a correspondence course and become a senior technician. Halfway through the apprenticeship, they turned around and said, oh, we're scrubbing that now. If you want to move forward, you've now got to do a communication certificate. So now that was a massive event in my life because it meant that while I was still doing my apprenticeship, I was also going to TAFE at night time to do this course because I thought I'm not waiting until I finish the 5 years because I guarantee I'll start that, then I'll change the rules again. I've got to get ahead of the game. So I thought, right, I'll start doing that at the same time. that was virtually working very long hours every day, working at their TAFE, working in the job, going to college at night time, and picked up a reputation of amiable Al, because anybody who talked to me, I'd snap, lack of sleep, always easy to stir me. But I then became, I got a transfer from Sydney to Newcastle, which was another big change, because I'd gone from living with my mother and sister, always having my mother doing the cooking and other things like that. Yes, I did some maintenance around the house, but other than that, you know, as most guys will find, they got mum looking after them. Well, I left there and came to Newcastle, and now had to cook for myself. And funny enough, I found a partner. She and I started dating. She worked, her mother ran a catering business at one of the bowling clubs. And so I used to go and pick her up and find that I'd get caught up helping to wash up and clean up and get things moving so she could get out of there. We go on our date. Next thing you know, I'm a short order cook. So here I am cooking and getting paid for food that I was preparing when I'd only been cooking for myself for 6 months. So I pretty much learned that I could turn my hand to just about anything in life. Then we got married, and big thing changed there. One of my uncles had told my fiance at our engagement party she could do better than me. And so that was a kick in the guts. It also gave me that push to become really self-reliant and prove to everybody, further than I had when I was a younger fella, of what I was capable of. But we had the 3 boys, and we'd moved to a property because my wife wanted to move to the country. We moved to the country, and the end result, she then wanted to go and find herself. So I jokingly tell everybody that I gave her the sports car so she could get there faster, and I kept the boys because they knew where they were. But so over the years, I learned that I also had to build a relationship with her, because otherwise my boys would suffer. So that was another turning point. But that happened after I'd been married a second time, short marriage. And that one, you can imagine you're going to catch up with your wife for lunch. You walk into a little cafe, and you can picture it. It's a beautiful little cafe, about a dozen tables in there, little Italian place with beautiful tables, tiles over the tables, very colourful, metal leg chairs. Any movement, you could hear a noise in the place. And we're sitting there, and she just said to me, "Alan, I want a divorce." That was the first thing she said to me when she sat down. And at that point, you could hear a pin drop in the room because everybody heard what she said.
Wow.
So that, that really pushed me at that point. And I thought, I've really got to learn how to read people. Over the years, I'd, in telecom, because PMG became our telecommunications sole provider, which was then Telecom, I became I was working with psychometric profiling, where you ask people questions with DISC and Myers-Briggs and things like that. Then I'd already been working with body language. In the early 2000s, I realized that this is after I'd left telecommunications. I was working in my own business, and this company taught currency trading. None of their students made any money. So they got me to come in and work out why people were losing money. They had a brilliant instructor. He taught well, he knew his craft. He was a very professional live trader, very successful. And I realized that when we were asking people questions, they weren't answering the questions in a truthful way, because people were trying to second guess. What sort of a personality do I have to be to be a good trader? And I'm going, no, we need to know your personality, because your personality is going to get triggered when you're under stress. You can behave and learn how to work in different ways, but when you're under stress, you'll always revert back to your own personality. And we needed to know that. I'd already had my NLP masters. And so I'd had the psychometric profiling, the body language, and the psychometric profiling. Plus I'd been a massage therapist for a period of time. I'd worked with color therapies and sound therapies and aroma therapies. And in fact, the color and sound therapies I introduced into the Singapore hospital for the kids with ADHD, so that they could connect with them more effectively, so that the children would be able to study longer. They'd be able, before their buttons would get pushed. Because you put anybody, you put anybody in an environment which is not conducive to their personality, you're going to trigger them. And kids with autism, Asperger's, any kid who's on the spectrum, they are hypersensitive. So you really need to know how to set the environment up so they don't get triggered. But then while I was working with this currency trading firm, I realized I need a better way of reading people, something that would not be affected by gender, would not be affected by the person's education level, would not be affected by emotions, either mine while I was reading them or theirs while they were answering the questions. And I needed something that could change all of that for me. And I was watching or doing a workshop one day, and somebody said to me, "You ever looked at reading faces?" So that's when I added the next two modalities, one being how to read somebody's micro expressions to understand their personality, their emotions, little twitches on the face, but also their facial features that would tell me their personality. So being able to look at someone's facial features straight away gives me the information to know their personality, know my own personality, so I know how to change the way I like to be spoken to match the way they want to be spoken to. And that way I can make a great connection with them. And then that's where the NLP came in, getting the language right. But then I had the body language and the micro expressions, little twitches on the face, that would tell me, have I read them right? Is there something emotionally going on? And lastly, are they telling me the truth? And that's when I created rapid trait profiling, which has become the science and art of reading people. So I took those four sciences, brought them together and put them into a way in which it's delivered as an art form.
And this is quite a story how actually life kind of these turning points in life just helped you to really shape where actually you're going in your life. And every these events, I imagine that every one of these events put a little bit, salt in that, just a little bit more. So you're just coming here of who you are and what you do. It's a beautiful story. And I realize how actually, that's why I'm asking you about the story, because always our story is the answer of what happened. And people can see that actually everything which is happening in our life, like in your life, you had quite a lot of challenges and I guess setbacks and moments when you just felt that why is this happening to me or something. But then people, when I see it in retrospect, they can understand that actually everything is happening for them.
Exactly.
Everything is happening for them. Yep.
Yeah. See, one of the biggest issues is that when things happen to us, we get all upset with that and we go, why me? And I realized, when I divorced my second wife, I had been a massage therapist before that and I'd put it on hold, but I got talked into coming back and giving a few friends a massage. And when they started asking me, how did the table move? Where'd the extra hands come from? And I'm thinking, these guys on drugs, what's happening here? And they said, well, because my whole massage technique had changed, gone from remedial to something that was completely new. And that was because of all the emotional stuff that was going on in my life. The fact that I was starting to get connected to my emotions more than what I had before, not just feeling them and shunning them, but now actually taking them on. And it was through the fact that I then opened my door back up again, and I was working with all of a sudden terminally ill patients coming through the door, plus also women who had been sexually abused coming to me, a male, to lie naked on a table underneath a towel and be treated with greatest respect and massaged, and they keep coming back. And I thought, I need some answers to this. And through some chance meetings, I got involved with an Aboriginal group and then got invited out bush on a regular basis, which ended up being every weekend for over a year, to where I was then finally invited out to go through my initiation. So through tribal initiation from boyhood into manhood. That was at the age of 50. That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so that was a big wake up for me. That then led on to wanting to understand people more. And that led on to then the face profiling that came in after that. And so realizing that all this stuff happened, but after I'd gone through that initiation, my very first wife because my boys had moved out when I got married the second time, the youngest one moved back with her. He would fight with her all the time. I'd take him out bush and he'd come out, meet with the other men. He'd come back, he was respectful to his mother. A couple of weeks later, he'd be fighting with her, take him back out bush again. And this cycle was going on. Wow. And I said, she said, well, what are we going to do about this? She said, he doesn't respect me and I don't think he loves me. I said, well, all three boys love you, but respect is something you have to earn. But first of all, if they're in the mindset they are, they need to be shown how to respect you first of all. That's not going to come from you. It's not going to come from another woman. It has to come from a male. Well, I'm the one with the biggest problem with you, as I see it. So it's my job. If you realize that I'm going to help them to respect you, that I'm doing it for them and not for you, because once she understood that if they didn't respect her, they would repeat my sort of history with all the relationships I'd had. And I didn't want to see that happen. It'd be bad enough if one did that, but all three. So I decided I had to make some changes. And so we built a relationship. And from that, the boys then, and the idea then was to try and get her to come back in and co-parent more as well. Because the boys definitely need a father, but they also need their mother as well. But as I said to the boys that grow up with mum have somebody looking after them all that time, and then they find a partner and they have somebody else looking after them. And as I told my 11 and 12-year-old at the time, and I said, check these legs out. They don't look good in a skirt. I'm not doing all the cooking. I'm not doing all the ironing. You guys are going to learn how to cook. You're going to learn how to make your own beds. You learn how to sew and iron your clothes and everything else. And I said, because when you do meet a woman later on in life, you will find one because you want her, not because you need her.
Yeah.
And that was that was all started coming from that Aboriginal society. What I learned from them, it's an ancient culture, but the level of wisdom and it's based on 3 pillars: love, humility, and respect.
Wow.
And so when you work with those, you have to change your attitude to pretty much everything that you had a negative thought on before. And that's been a very solid part of my growth as well.
So much wisdom from these people. I mean, even though they're like, some people would say they are like ancient people or something like this. Actually, you can see that the simplicity they live, the way they live, it's something which we need nowadays, because we overcomplicate everything which we do. But I just wanted to come back to the reading people part and ask you. Definitely, there is a lot of science in reading people. We see that you learn a lot of things, compare and stuff. But so I want you to talk about both. When it's a science, in what way it's a science, but also when it becomes an art. Because it seems that also you see the science behind you. So the science and art of reading people, but it is a science in what way it is, but when it becomes art, an art.
Firstly, it becomes art in the way it's delivered. So it's always had the potential of being an art form as well. Now, I'll talk about the facial features first of all, because this is where most people have the biggest problem. They'll go, oh, that sounds a little bit clairvoyancy. You got a crystal ball, you read minds. No, what it comes down to is if everybody who's, done any sports, if you lift weights, if you exercise a muscle, it's going to grow. Because it's that repetitive breaking down the muscle and letting it rebuild. If you do bicep curls all the time, you'll build your biceps. If you do tricep extensions, you'll build your triceps. If I do a bicep curl that way, or I do it that way, it will change the muscle movements and I'll change the shape. This is why bodybuilders, they sculpt their body by varying the exercises they do. So at the same time, we also know that everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. If somebody's happy, they're not going to walk around with their head down. Their shoulders are going to be back. They're going to be bouncing and everything else. If they're feeling miserable inside, it's hard to put a smile on your face. It takes hard work and it keeps slipping off the face. And so if we build muscles by exercising, at the same time we feel inside, we express outwardly. When you're concentrating and thinking, you're going to be pulling expressions over and over. And so you're creating ridges and crevices on your face. And as a young child, even the expansion of your skull, no 2 skulls on the planet that are identical. The sutures, the skull grows as the brain grows with all the synaptic connections. So depending on how you think and where you think, what processes you use, depends on the shape the brain takes and therefore the shape the skull takes.
Wow.
And so when you look at that, the skeletal structure that changes over a period of time, we have the traits that are passed down from our parents that we call nature traits. And then we have a response to our environment, the things that we learn, how we respond to things, that we then create the nurture traits. And so there's traits that we can see in a newborn baby, And as they get older, there's more and more traits, and then the nature traits start to get mixed up with the nurture traits. We get more of the nurture traits. And so until around about, early 20s, we can see all of the traits. And so that tells me somebody's personality. So now I know where I am on the scale and where they are on the scale on each trait. And I know then how to actually speak to them. And so how to change the way I like to be spoken to match the way that they want to be spoken to and deliver it in that way. Then, as I said, the micro expressions, they came from Paul Ekman, who, and others at the time. Paul in 1969 went to the Phrenology tribe in Papua New Guinea, and he put photographs in front of people and said, this situation, which face? And he might have said, right, a child's just died, and they'll have a happy face, an angry face, a sad face, or whatever it was. And they tested the tribe, and out of them, they found that there were 7 expressions which are pretty much universal. So our face has got 43 muscles. It can pull over 10,000 expressions. Paul and his team over the years created a catalogue of traits called FACS, Facial Action Coding System, where he's named about 3,000 expressions. But he found there were 7 expressions which are universal, because all this came from Charles Darwin in 1872 when he travelled the world. He was trying to, as you said, could not understand what people were saying around the world, but he could understand what they felt by their emotions, their expressions. And so he thought, right, but then all the anthropologists for near on 95 years said, no, he's talking about that being nature. And they were saying, no, it's cultural. It depends on your culture as to what expressions. Well, if you're being born in a capital city, a tribal village, or a country town or anything else, or if you've been blind for birth, if you feel anger, you're going to have an angry look on your face. You feel contempt, you're going to have a contemptuous look on your face. If you've got sadness, you'll have a sad look on your face. And those 7 expressions, happiness, sadness, fear and surprise, anger, disgust, and contempt, if you've got any one of those emotions inside, you'll have the corresponding expression on your face. So they became then the foundation of being able to detect whether somebody's telling you the truth. So if I said to you, one of your dear friends has just broken up with their partner, and I see a little twitch of a smile, I'd be expecting you first to go, oh, that's terrible, but a little twitch of a smile. I know you're happy about it. But again, I don't judge you on that. There could be a number of reasons to why you're happy. Yes, my friend's been a real smart aleck lately, and it's really nice to see him get a kick in the bum and bring him back off their pedestal, back down to earth. 2, I thought their partner was a really horrible person. I'm happy for them because they're going to be better off. Or could it be something like 3? Well, they're now free. Now I've got a shot at hooking up with them. So it could be any of those reasons. But the twitch tells me that little expression tells me that something is going on. It's either congruent with what we're talked about, or it's incongruent. If it's in context, does it really fit? But I look for those in clusters. So if you've got, well, in body language, you've got your arms folded, everyone will tell you that that person is disconnected. Well, if they've got their arm folded and they're leaning in and they're nodding you, your feet are facing towards you, every other body language indicator is saying, hey, I'm interested, but they've got their arms folded. That could be for a number of reasons. It's cold. They've got sore shoulders and they're resting their arms. I love what you're talking about. I'm really fascinated by you, but I'm intimidated by you, so I'll give myself a warm hug. It could be any of those things, but it's always seeing things in their context. So one of the biggest problems I found was some of the best people at these different skills, when they do a talk on stage, they're there to entertain. And so they entertain people, but they don't realize that a lot of the people aren't understanding there's more to the story than what they've told. And so I'm pretty much an educator. I prefer to actually work through that. But so first of all, as I said, body language has been around for a long time, and everybody's had some view with that. There's so many indicators we see. The pupils of the eyes, they will change size without the change of light connected to the amount of arousal or disinterest or fear the person has. the pupil will change in size because the blood system supply is changing, the physiology is changing, where their breathing will change. There's about 2 million bits of information we pick up every second, but we only process 134 bits, one small fraction of it. So what I do is I look for everything. And so while I'm seeing little triggers here and there, and I teach people how to do that. And that way, like, or if I may, I know that in your particular case as well, you just like the overview, first of all. You don't want to analyze things to an in-depth. If I came to you and gave you a lot of information, Demi, you're going to just, either try and finish my sentences off or you're going to get distracted. And somebody who's very analytical, they will sell to you, you'll be ready to buy, and they'll just miss that and they'll actually talk themselves out the back door. They'll talk themselves out of the sale. But I know once you got that overview, it's also then give me the best way to do it and get out of the way and let me get it done. So you don't want to waste a lot of time. So you're going to be quick to make your mind up about things. But I know you're going to be fussy about them as well. So it's got to be right and all the rest of it. And I know that you're going to find the errors in things. So yes, you just want the overview, but if there's any errors in what the person's presented to you, they haven't dotted the I's or crossed the T's properly in a document, you're going to pick it up like that. And that's when you will then start asking for more information because you're not trusting what they've actually showing you. So if I can see that straight away, I know, don't talk to you the way I like to be spoken to, change it the way that I can see that you want to be spoken to. And that way we have a much closer connection. And if I am selling to you, the sale will go as fast as it needs to go. It'll take the precise time it needs, nothing less, nothing more. And if we're in a social relationship, I know how to put you at ease if we're meeting at a club or anything like that, or having a dinner party. I know how to talk to the other people and set it up so everybody has a great time. So this is not used just for selling. It's used, well, relationships are the foundation of everything we do in life. And once you get that foundation in place, then everything else comes on top of that, whether it be finding a partner that matches your personality, then, a romantic partner, and then having children and knowing, well, first of all, once you got the partner, how to keep the partner. So that because the things that interest you when you first met them, every trait's got an upside and every trait's got a downside. So the stuff that you got interested in, you saw the high side of their traits, like somebody who's very expressive. Well, after we get used to that, then the other side of the traits come out. Not that the person's changed, but our notice of what we notice changes. So we're going from being excited about the flair they put into everything. Now we see them putting that into the stress as well. And we go, oh my God, they're a bit of a drama queen. And so that side comes out. But if we know that, we know what the high side of the trait is. If we want to get that back into the relationship, we know how to talk to them in the way that we can connect with them and set the environment up so the downside of the traits don't get triggered. Now we've got a loving partner who's there with us right into the future. Then when you have children, you know what hobbies and sports will suit them as they're growing up. I can tell you what they're going to be like before they even go to school, what they're going to behave like in kindergarten before they even get to kindergarten. I can tell you what they're going to be like through primary school as well. Wow. Then before they pick their final subjects, we now know what careers will suit their personality, and we can direct them, not tell them, but direct them into checking out the particular careers that match their academic level, but have the aspects in it that match their personality style. So they can then go and do studies, get a job that they really love to do because it matches their personality. Then when they're at work, they're going to be happier. If they're happier at work, they're going to be more productive and the business makes more money. And when they go home, they're going to have a better relationship with their spouse. And so their spouse is happy. And because they're enjoying work, there's no bullying at work or those sort of things. Everybody is happy to be there with everybody else. And if they're happy with their spouse at home, then their kids are happier as well. So relationships are the foundation of everything we do in life.
Yep.
And being able to read somebody is the best way to be able to build that relationship and make sure it's solid with everybody that you meet.
Absolutely, Alan. I was so happy to hear. I mean, not happy. It's not a happy the word, but it's just fascinated to hear what you said about about the overview thing. And definitely it is like this. I am this kind of person. I really want to get the big picture of it, so you can say that what is it there, and then if I want, I can go in details in some places which I feel like I want to go in details. Is it like something specific which I did which made you feel like to recognize this in me, or it's like
features?
Okay.
It's in your facial features. The good thing about when it comes to reading the personality, you don't have to see the person in real life. All you have to see is their photograph. I did a profile for a gentleman just recently, and then after I did the profile, he sent me 5 photographs. I did his profile. I sent him back an audio file that went about 45 minutes. It talked about each of the traits, but also talked about situations where his buttons would get pushed and everything else. He then spoke to me, and we went through it a bit deeper, and he then told me that he used to work undercover in narcotics and also in the military. He worked with a lot of different government departments and federal departments. As he said, his survival depended on him being able to read people, and he spent years and years to understand himself and learning how to read other people. What blew him away, as he said, he listened to the tape. There was nothing new in the tape that I'd put in there that he hadn't already spent all those years finding out about himself. But what blew him away was the fact that I could see it in 5 photographs, stagnant pictures, not any movement or anything else, no observation of him, and nail all those points. And so it proves, every time I work with people, I've worked with children who have got Asperger's or autism. I've profiled for their parents. I've told the teachers and the parents how to change the way each of them individually talk to match the way the child needed to be spoken to. I'm still getting testimonial videos from parents 10 years after I profiled their child and told them how to handle it, how to address the situation, how to talk to the teachers and the after schools care, and how to talk to their partners so that everything changed for that child. So, as I say, it doesn't matter where you are in your cycle of life, this stuff will fit in.
Yeah, and there's this question. I'm going to give you my idea around personality, and I want to ask you what's your opinion on that, because there are many different profiling tools in the world. Like you can go, like you said, Myers-Briggs. I guess DISC is one of them. There is this Enneagram, which Enneagram is really one of them, which I was using the most in my life, honestly. You also have the Strength Finder, Gallup tool. So I know that there NLP is one of the, very, very popular in them. But what I believe personally, and this is one of the things which Enneagram is talking about, is that it's a big question. Are we our personality, or we are something more than our personality? And our personality is just something we just created throughout life based on our life and our culture and everything. And it's a question which I have, because you are someone who is working a lot of personality. And what is your opinion on that? My personal opinion is that personality for me is the beginning of something, a journey you have in life. So you can work, you have a basic, you have something to recognize yourself, to start working if you want to transcend it. So what is your opinion on that?
Our life starts in the womb, and we are, we get our DNA from our 2 parents and from their ancestors going back. There's so many things that come into this. Every memory we have is not just stored in our brain, it's stored in every cell of our body. If it wasn't, that's why, hereditary disease and things like that wouldn't be passed on. And so every experience your parents had up to the point of you being conceived is in your DNA. So when people talk about past life experiences and everything else, yes, it is a past life, but it could be a memory of one of your ancestors. But yes, it's your memory, so you've got to do something about it. But realize that, I may not have been that Viking maiden in a previous life, but that memory is with me. But the whole thing is the memories are passed down in every cell. So that's where our nature traits start to come from. But as I said before, as we go through life, and depending on how we choose to interact with and have our environment affect us, depends on how we create those. So that becomes a choice. So really our personality we are not our personality.
No.
Our personality is part of us because there's so many other, things around us. We have character as well. We have values, all those different things. There used to be a belief that particular bumps on the head, the thing called phrenology, that particular shapes would be serial killers and things like that. You get someone's character from it. Well, I look at people, I'm looking at the face, and I can see two people look very similar to each other. They will both process information in a similar way. They'll take it in, they'll value it, they'll process it in their mind. They will act in certain situations in a similar way. But what they are thinking is all to do with their character. Two can look very similar, think in a similar way, but have completely different reasons. One could be a saint, one could be a sinner. So I look at it and go, rightio, the personality is a foundation. It comes down in the DNA, but then we build on it as time goes on. We've got all these other things around. We have choice. There's, what we put in our mouth, chemicals that we get from that. Our thoughts that we have create chemicals.
Yeah.
We're very extremely complex beings, but boy, do we like to make our life complex as well. They make it complicated. Really, life is pretty simple. Yes, we are complex, but if we understand the complexity, we can make our life pretty simple. And, meditation and other things that we put into our life, all things can change. So there's so many things going on. So personality is just part of us.
Yeah, that's one of the things which I always, when I talk to people, clients and in general with people, that actually, we even sometimes we use it as an excuse for not doing things, for I'm just like this. Many people say that I'm just like this is just me, I can't do that. And I'm always saying to them that actually you can if you choose to. Yes, for you maybe it comes a little bit harder than someone else who has a little bit more personality in this direction. For example, there are people who are more active oriented, they're active people, they activate things, they do things, and it just comes naturally, like you said to you, like you said it. But other people can do that as well, just they need a little bit more effort to do it. But you don't need to talk about in a way that, okay, I can't do it because I'm just like this. No, you're not just like this, you are bigger than that, and if you choose to, you can make it happen. It's something important for people. Yeah.
Yeah, we can make it hard for ourselves by, as you said, we have to put more effort into do something that we weren't really inclined to do before. But again, it's more of a decision than anything else. It's more about an awareness of things. All the things that I've seen in my past where I thought, oh, that's impossible, I can never do that, and then ended up doing, just because of, I hadn't even been thinking about doing it, just been following life and doing the things that were coming up, making decisions, reacting to my environment. And it just happened to be that they lined up the right way. For somebody else, they mightn't line up. So it's our awareness that's more important. I remember somebody saying to me, oh, you get so many opportunities. And I go, well, when I was growing up, I thought there were no opportunities. But I then realized that when a door shuts, an opportunity that you've had before, the door shuts on it, most people are still looking at that door and going through the remorse and the loss, the grief that goes with it. I'm going, right, I heard the door bang, I can't get back in there. What other doors are opening? Because opportunities are like buses. They're along every few minutes. Yes. And some people go, I haven't seen a bus all day or all year. And others are going, well, I've been traveling all over the place. It's what we observe. It's what we open up to. If we doubt ourselves, the saying that I'm only human, that's good from the point of view of being able to say, hey, I have frailties.
Yep.
But to use that and say, I'm just human, and use that as an excuse. I use that and say, yes, I am human, just human. I have frailties and everything else, but I choose to do something about those. Because at the end of the day, everything in life is choice.
Absolutely.
And people say, I can't change. Well, the only thing that's constant in this life is change.
Exactly. It's I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, and he was the meditations is next to my bed every evening. I read something of it, and it's just, he was just talking about that. Okay, if you want to cook a meal, you need to make a change. That the change is there. The food, you go and cook it, and it's from one goes to another, and then everything is like this. And like you see that in the nature, everything is changed, whatever it is. So today is rainy, tomorrow is sunny. Now it's winter, then it goes to summer. So it's there, and we want to stay, to stay the same. And it cannot happen because it's against nature. He talks a lot about nature and everything. And absolutely, I totally agree with you. And when you understand that, and you understand we are part of nature, so this is who we are actually. A personality, as you said, it's part of it, but it's not the whole. And I just want to ask you something practical to just bring back to reading people. Tell me, I mean, you cannot tell me everything, but just give me some practical tips on how to read, how, maybe 3-4 tips on when you see someone, how to actually make some kind of basic understanding of how this person is right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, if you're meeting them in real life, one of the facial features I look for is how high the eyebrows are set. How big's the gap between the eye and the eyebrow?
Okay.
And people who have a large gap, they need more space. They're more they're not friendly. It's more that they're more discerning. They'll go into a room and they'll like to check people out before they walk up to them. So they're working out who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around. Someone who's like me, who's affable, eyebrows and my eyes are pretty close together. Yeah. So I'm quite happy walking up and standing close to people from the very first time. The only time I don't do that, because I'm only 5'6". If I'm standing there next to somebody who's 6'2", for instance, and your neck's back like this while you're trying to look at them, I will then step back from them. But any other time, I'm comfortable standing close to somebody. If somebody is more discerning, they like a bit of a space. If you walk up and straight into their space, they're not going to hear a thing you're saying because they're feeling uncomfortable. And they might even move back. And if you don't recognize that and you move in, it's like chasing them across the room after that, and they'll keep pulling back from you. And so you've lost their connection. On the other things to look for is the change in the posture. If they're leaning towards you and everything else, they're interested in it. But if they're turning away, like if somebody's got their arms folded and their feet are facing towards the door and they're sort of looking around, they don't want to be around you. You've lost them. But so being able to read the traits before you even get to them, how they like to think and process and take information in and what they're likely to do in any situation. You set up your talk with them, and then if that doesn't match, they still operate differently, then you're asking yourself, what else is going on? Is there something here that a bit suspicious on their behavior, or has somebody been talking about you before you got there? Saying, I don't trust him, or don't trust her. What's their perception? What have they taken on? Have they just been through a really horrible time with the previous person that was talking to them, and they really just want to get out of there and go home? So recognizing things. As I keep saying to people, you've got 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. But when you use the mouth, even divide that up, because the ears are just not only hearing, but also listening to what's being said. Your eyes are just, taking in all the bits and pieces, but really taking it in and absorbing it and recognizing what you're seeing. With the mouth, yes, you might be giving him some ideas and suggestions and things like that, but you don't do that until you've exhausted all the possible questions you could ask them. And you really bring the advice down, because they say that on average now, from somebody starting to talk about something important in their life, it will take 19 seconds before somebody will jump in with some advice. How in the world can you get any information from a person in 19 seconds? On the Campfire Project, I had people sit there and tell me their life stories. And I've been pretty much recognised as the one person who sits there for the longest period of time. People have recorded it and said, I've sat there for 45 minutes without saying a word to somebody. Wow. Have you been profiling them? No, I've been listening to them, absorbing it. When they walked up to see them on screen, so we're on Zoom, for instance, the moment I've seen them, I've done the profiling. It's done. It only takes me a moment to profile somebody.
Wow.
If somebody walked around the corner in the street, say from 20 feet away, they already suddenly appear there as they come around the corner. And as they're walking past me and I'm walking towards them, I can sit down for the next 20 minutes and tell you in 20 all the major traits I could see and how they interact. And from other indicators like body language and things, I can tell you what sort of a day they're having and whether that's their normal way of doing things or whether they're going through tough times or whatever. You know,
Wow.
I've learned to be that observant. And by the way, I used to be dreadful at reading people. Well, I'd have to be dreadful at reading people. 2 marriages and 2 divorces, a lot of broken personal relationships and business partners who entered the bank. You know,
Wow.
I was lousy at reading people. That's why I became a profile, because I had to learn for my benefit before anybody else's. But then I'm like everybody else. I believe that once you learn something, we have a moral obligation to pass that on to other people, but do it in a respectful way. Share it with the people who want to hear it. So somebody has to ask me for advice before I will give them advice. And the moment they stop listening, I stop talking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you started actually sharing so many interesting things for me when, I mean, we were meeting for the second time, and it was very interesting what you said about this. I'm so curious to know more, of course, about that, because it's just you feel that you're really seeing things in me. So my distance is a little bit bigger than yours, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess I need a little bit more space in life.
And also, there's a dramatic appreciation, like to put the flair into things. So being a presenter and talking and everything else is reasonably natural compared to someone like me who is very ascetic. It took me a long time to learn to talk with my hands. You know, it was a monotone voice that I used to have. But
Wow.
with the number of, well, this would be my 79th interview for this year that you and I are having.
Wow.
So I've gotten very used to speaking. I've just done a workshop where on Zoom where we had 600 people attend.
Whoa.
And so I don't have any problems with talking with people now, and I've learned how to project my voice and everything else. But it's taken me quite a bit of practice to get there. I can be as good as somebody else who has the dramatic flair, but it means I practice more to get to where they get there more naturally.
Yes.
So every trait's got an upside and every trait's got a downside, and there's no right or wrong trait. But if you know your personality traits, you know how to set your environment up so that you can operate in the strength side of it and not get the negative side or the downside of the traits triggered. And so therefore we have a happy life. And if we have a happy life, then the people around us are happier as well. You know, everything's connected.
Everything is connected, man. So tell us, if the people who want to start really getting into reading people, what can they do? The first step they can take in order to learn more about it?
One of the things that I always believe is that there's an Arabic saying, trust everybody, but lock up your camels at night. And this I say to everybody who's listening to this as well. Any webinar or any talk you go to, anybody speaking, yes, take it all in and then go away and value it for yourself. Work it out and just see whether it works for you or not. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it'll work for you. So test everything that I've said. And to allow you to do that, I've got a free course that I give away. It takes 28 minutes to do it. It looks at a number of physical traits you can see on someone's face and how to use that, but also where the eyes move when somebody is sourcing information. And that it advertises my other course, so it gives people an idea of what they can then go on and do in other areas. I always say I never sell to people. What I do is educate them. If that education then fits into what they want to do in life, then they can come back to me for more education. And then, you know, there's also the paid services as well. So I believe I'm not a servant leader. I'm a serving leader. Because the word servant, people get in their mind, oh, you know, I'm being told what to do. But to serve somebody, it's like a waiter who looks after all their tables and everybody in the room, waiters and waitresses. They are the dominant person at that time. They're the ones who know how to look after everybody. They help everybody have a great time. They're serving. They're not servants. So when you get that distinction, every leader out there, your job is to make yourself redundant by bringing everybody else up to your level so they can do everything that you do just as well as you, if not better than you. Because if you don't, you create yourself your own prison where you're indispensable and you can never grow from there. You're always going to be stuck in that one role. I forever make myself redundant in everything I do. In the employment, I got everyone raised up in levels. My second in charge was the same level as me, and I got redundancy and got out of the organisation. One of the few people who's organised his own redundancy in telecom in Australia. Then in the surf club, I became a surf lifesaver, and then a patrol captain, then a club captain, and looking after 3 beaches. The guy who took over for me when I left, everybody came to me and told me that he did a better job than me. And they were saying, why are you smiling? I said, because that was a target. If I'm the only person who can do the job, I'm stuck there, and I want to keep growing and learning, because the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything. So when you put those couple of things together, this has been the philosophy of my whole life.
Yeah.
Always learning, never stop learning, always serving and helping other people to grow, because in doing that, I'm always growing as well. You can't light someone else's path without lighting your own. And people say to me, are you a teacher? And I go, I'm a part-time teacher, but I'm a full-time learner. And when people say, oh, do you teach people? I go, no, I learn them. And they go, what do you mean you learn them? That's bad grammar. I go, no, but it might be bad grammar, but it's more accurate. I don't just teach them what I know. I'm learning from them, so I know how to deliver it to them even better. Is one of the reasons why I've been able to profile somebody. Boy, can I hyperdrive that one. I can really power that one up and make sure that I'm able to give them the best possible training they can never get from anyone.
Absolutely,
doing
man.
That, I'm creating and training my competition. We need more people doing what I'm doing, but they've got to be doing it right. So I've got a moral obligation to train them as well.
Yeah, it seems like you're living out purpose, and you really want to really help people and create some legacy around, what you've learned in your life through living, actually. Because for you, it's, of course, you learn some things, like you study it, you learn, but also it seems that your life, taught you a lot. And I just wanted two things. The first thing is to say that it's very important for people, because nowadays, when we talk about reading people, body language, there are so many books and so many resources out there to really, get some idea around it. But I think people get a little bit superficial on that. You shared one of the things, like when someone puts their hands like this and they cross them, and people get immediately the idea that they are closed. But you actually share that it's not every time they are closed. Maybe there is something which is there. You need to see, again, here, you need to see the big picture of it. You need to see the big picture of the person, so that you can understand, is this something, this person is doing it like naturally, it's the habit of the person, he likes to be like this, or it's specifically for this situation. Or another thing which I realized also is that when someone is doing like this, sometimes you believe people get, the first impression is, this person doesn't like me. But very often people, when they do like this, they just think. They just, they heard something and they want to process it. And this is another feature of the face where people get confused. Because because in coaching, for example, when I work with someone, there are some people, they do like this. And I was at some point asking them what is happening, and they just think about it. They want to process it. It's very important for us to not take things sometimes as granted, but just to a little bit give the chance of the person to really see, okay, what is this person about? This person is maybe thinking more, so they need space for that. And that's why they're doing that. So there's some features which I realized in my life that are not like face, to not take it as face value, but just to go a little bit deeper with them. Yeah.
You'll see, I love the number 3. 3, if you look at a shape like a triangle, strongest shape on the planet. It's hardest to break down. A circle, you can crush it in. A square, you can push it over. But the triangle is its most solid one. So 3s, I love things in 3s. When I'm reading people, I need to be able to know how they take information in, know how they are likely to process that, and know how they're likely to act. That's my reading part of it. When it comes to communicating with them, I need to know in what order they need the information, what style they need it in, and how much information. Then when I've got that in place, I've been able to read them and then know how to talk to them. I then know how to check on things. This is where I use the body language and expressions come in. I'm looking at, and this is where the real main one is, look at everything in clusters. I want to see as many things as I can, all pointing in the same direction. Then I want to see it in context. It's what's happening in context with the situation. And is it congruent? So if I've got those three things, so if I'm looking, I'll give you an example of the folded arms. I was talking to a bank manager one day at a luncheon. He had his second in charge with me, and he heard what I did. And he said, "Oh, tell me about this folded arms business." I said, "Well, what's your problem with it?" And he said, because I could see by his expression, he had an incorrect understanding. And he said, "Well, you know, my second in charge has always got his arms folded. How do I get him to unfold his arms?" So it was a longer conversation, but I'll abbreviate it here. I just said to him, "Look, does he listen to you when you tell him things?" He goes, "Yes, he does." "Does he do what you've asked him to do?" "Yes, he does." "When you're not there, does he do the things that you've asked him to do?" And he goes, "Yes." And I said, "So what's he like as a second in charge?" He said, "He's pretty good." And I said, "Well, who else does he not fold his arms, or who does he fold his arms with?" "Oh, he doesn't do it anywhere with anybody else in the depot, in the branch." "Do you take him out to other gatherings like this? Do you take him to head office, to other meetings with other managers?" He goes, "Yes." And I said, "Does he do it with them?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, he does." So do you think he might be giving himself a little warm hug by crossing his arms? Of course, he's intimidated.
Yeah.
And I said, "And you want him to unfold his arms? That's like stripping somebody naked in a crowd. They're no longer going to be comfortable." So I said, "You're trying to improve his performance. You're actually going to reduce it." And I saw the smile on his second in charge, just went from ear to ear. Anyway, 6 months later, I was at an expo on finance, and I was talking to a guy from another bank. He was a broker, mortgage broker. And I said, "Well," he asked me about the folded arms. And I went, "Why is everybody asking me about folded arms?" I said, "What's the issue with you with folded arms?" He said, "Oh, not with me." He said, "It was one of my managers 12 years ago. The manager used to whinge all the time because my arms folded when he was talking to me." And I went, because this guy was from a different bank to where the manager was now. And I said, "Oh, is he still with you?" And he went, "No." He went over to, and he mentioned not only the other bank, but also the branch. It was the same guy. 12 years, he had heard somebody speak about folded arms as a barrier. They're shut off. Well, it could be a barrier to the cold. It could be a barrier to the pain they've got in their arms. It could be just the way, it could be a bad back. I've got a mate who's, he's got a fairly solid beer belly. So he has to lean back a bit, but he puts his arms to balance himself to take the pressure away from his back. There's going to be a whole mass of reasons for it.
Absolutely.
But what's every other indicator pointing towards? Yes, if their feet are facing towards the door, they're leaning away from you. Yeah, it all stacks up. They're in a cluster that all say they want to go that way. If, however, they've got their arms folded, but they're listening in, they're nodding, they're asking questions, their feet are facing towards you, their body length, they're breathing casually and everything else, they are interested. Folded arms means something completely different. If I've got somebody who's doing that, I'll do things like I'll pass them something, them to open up, have a talk and everything else. And I'm looking for the change. When they open their arms, I know the rapport I have with them is really there then, because that was one thing they used that as a protection. Now they're able to open their arms up. They don't need the protection anymore. They fully trust me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried about the folded arms to start with, but I rejoice when the folded arms unfold.
Yeah, absolutely.
See how it all comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go, I wanted to ask you, just for 30 seconds, 1 minute, tell me, what did you learn about me today? You can say, as a profiler, what did you learn about Dimitri Wakov, me?
Well, I know that
as a person.
Well, everybody, if they watch the video over and over, they'll see the energy that's there. You're interested in everything else. This, with a hand against the face like this, people would say, "Oh, that's, they're hiding." Well, if you were talking to me or doing something like that, then yes, you're masking it. But if you're like this, it's also stopping yourself from speaking. So you're listening. The nodding and everything else is going with it. You're just being comfortable in that. This is a thinking process. You're looking up. So you're thinking positively. If you're down like that statue of the great thinker, he's naked guy sitting there and he's down like this. He's obviously been to the races and just lost his shirt. He's lost all his money. So that one is, he's deeply in thought, but it could be something pretty negative that he's thinking about, something drama. But when you're sitting back like that, you're taking it in, what are the possibilities? So it's a combination of those things. So I know from your facial features that you like putting the flair in things, so the dramatic side of things is there. The fact that you've asked so many questions, knowing that you're somebody who just wants the overview, I know you're really into this. You really want to know more. Because if I'd say to someone like you, Demi, look, there's a lot of information here. I'm just going to give you the overview. You ask all the questions you want to ask. Yeah. But if there's something there that you don't ask that I think you need to know, it's all right if I tell you that then. Because the moment I've made that statement and I go, right, this is the overview, and then go, right, what are your questions? You know that we're having a conversation. I'm not going to be talking at you.
No.
So I know that in an interview like this, yes, the person being interviewed has got to talk a lot more, but this has been pretty much like a conversation. But I have been sharing a lot with you, but you've also been sharing as well.
Yeah, that was the idea. And absolutely true. I mean, I was super interested. I just wanted to, it just, actually, the interesting thing is I was listening really attentively, but at the same time, there were ideas which are popping up. You just inspired ideas in me, so I wanted to share. So that's definitely, I'm super interested in this topic, that's definitely. And before we go, just tell me, what is your message? If you want to share some message with the audience, whatever it is, what can be?
Well, as I said before, one of the most important things is keep an open mind, ask questions, but then go away and evaluate everything you're told. And, don't do everything on your own. I turn 70 next year and I've still got coaches and always will to the day I die. I've always got people around me who know more than me. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room, then there's no growth for you. I like to be around, I don't want to be the dummy in the room, but at the same time, I don't want to be the smartest. I want to learn from people. So when you're around people that are smarter than you, rejoice in that and focus on what they've got to tell you, because that'll make you smarter again as well. This is how we grow. And then when you've learnt that, be willing to pass that on to other people when they ask.
Yeah.
Don't force it on them, share it with them when they're ready.
Thank you, man. So if people want to contact you, where they can do that? And just share, is it email or LinkedIn, whatever?
Well, the best thing, you can get me on LinkedIn. If they just search for Reading Faces, that will find me, or Alan Stevens. If they go to my website, which is alanstevens.com.au, so ALAN and STEVENS.com.au for Australia. If they put in the / and then the word free, FREE, well, the first part up to the .au will take to my website, and there's contacts in there. There's a whole bunch of things they can get. But if they put the word free on the end of it, they'll be able to download that free course and test it out for themselves. So as I said, 28 minutes, 14 modules. Longest module is 5 minutes. The shortest module is 28 seconds.
Okay, wow.
And it's got a lot of information in that 28 seconds that they go away and apply that, test it for themselves and see how they go.
Perfect. Cool. So actually, thank you for the whole wisdom, man. There were so many interesting things. We could do this interview like 1 hour. We can do it like 3 hours and we could still talking about stuff. I'm sure about this. Thank you for that. I'm sure that people will stay with the pen and write so many notes after this interview to learn. They learned so many things here, and guys, contact Alan. I'm sure that you can learn a lot from this guy. Try the free course, and then if you like it, just go with that. And he has so many other resources he can provide you with. So do it. Thank you, Alan, and have a lovely, lovely day. Bye.
You're welcome. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Thank you.